Hey guys, it's Tatas Tuesday and a bit of a holdover from the Olympics. I'm going to talk about Caster Semenya today and the very unfortunate controversy surrounding her. Caster Semenya is the woman in the middle. She won gold in the 800 meter and she is a hyperandrogenic or androgenist, some people say, woman. What does that mean? It means that she has an abnormally large amount of male androgenic hormones. Both men and women's bodies produce androgens in different amounts. And this has been part of the controversy surrounding Caster Semenya. And she's been subjected to some pretty harsh treatment by not only various sports organizations but other athletes. And the woman behind her here, you see Sharp, she had some less than kind things to say about her after the race. And other athletes, female athletes, have been forced to undergo surgery or take hormone suppressing drugs to be allowed to compete. Now, as you can imagine, all drugs have side effects and all surgeries have potential risks with them. So the issue is, on the one side are people saying they want these women to be subjected to these medical procedures to keep sport fair. And on the other side, you have people saying it's not fair that intersex or transgendered athletes should be subjected to greater violations of body autonomy. And of course you get the extreme viewpoint that if we let in women with high testosterone, well, then we have to start letting in anyone who identifies as a woman. Like, that's people are going to go, it's not foolish, but I'm going to say that's foolish because of the very small number of people affected by these conditions. It's relatively rare. And there's been other athletes that have had these conditions and not done as well as Caster Semenya. So there's more to it than just a biological advantage. I've been doing some research on this because I didn't just want to jump to an emotional conclusion, because I'll take you guys down my sort of journey on this one. When I first saw this story, it was, I read that people were saying she was a man and complaining about this stuff. Really hurtful stuff, right? She is a woman. There's no medical question about that. She just has a medical condition. And I watched her run because I wanted to see if there was an unusually high advantage. I mean, she's clearly in great shape. She clearly has great musculature. But how do I put this? She's had the 5th fastest time in Olympic history, I believe. So, I mean, she's not smashing the world record. Yes, she won by a large margin, but it wasn't any greater a margin comparative to the race than Usain Bolt wins every time he runs. So there's more to it. There are also athletes that have a particular blood condition that causes their blood to produce more hemoglobin than the average person. And this is not trying to be banned from competition. This particular boogeyman here is linked to gender and linked to the very sensitive idea of what it is to be a woman, what it is to participate in women's sport, and what the segregation of sport by gender means. Why do we do it? Why do we have women competing against women and men competing against men? And, people say, well, obviously men are faster, taller, stronger, the whole thing. That's not always true. Katie Ledecky can beat almost any male swimmer in the world. But nobody's questioning Katie Ledecky's gender because she looks female. There is no biological marker you can point to with her and say, well, this defies gender as we know it or sex as we know it. But obviously there's things about certain swimmers that give them advantages over others. Height is a big thing. Both track and swimming benefit from being taller because it increases your stride length or it increases your stroke length. I saw an amazing piece on the science of why Usain Bolt is so fast, and it's basically he has to run like 40 strides, for every 100 meters, where Andre DeGrasse has to run 46. So Andre DeGrasse actually has to run faster according to his height than Usain Bolt does to achieve the same result. Now, are we going to start restricting, events by height? That does happen in gymnastics. It happens in women's gymnastics. The issue, the reason that women's gymnastics are so short is there is a physical benefit. First of all, having a lower center of gravity helps. But a few years back, there was a gymnast, I don't remember if she was from Romania or the Ukraine, but she was a whopping 5'6" or something like that. And she couldn't do layout turns or layout, rotations on the uneven bars. Her feet would hit the lower bar as she was attempting to do a rotation in the layout position. And this, if you look at different sports, different body types benefit different sports. And if you look at the shot putters, these are strong women. They are strong. I watched this I don't want any of these women mad at me ever. And I felt that way about the weightlifters. But the weightlifters look completely different from sprinters, look completely different from long distance athletes. If you look at the marathon runners, they're skinny. They're skinny guys. And so an athlete doesn't look a certain way. And they've actually done studies on this. They have found that high androgens in women do not, they cannot prove it actually gives them a meaningful advantage. They find things like funding, access to training, access to proper coaching, nutrition. All these things have a much greater and more consistent effect. But then, because I'm me, and went, is this actually a benefit? Is, high androgen counts in women something, oh, I wish I had it sort of thing? There's actually health issues associated with it. And this is when the whole thing moves from very sad, I empathize with this woman, to just gross, because high testosterone in women is not a good thing. It can lead to serious conditions. About 10% of women with high levels of a particular kind of testosterone get polycystic ovary syndrome. And polycystic ovary syndrome is a horrible condition. I have a friend who has it, and it is miserable for her. You can get very serious symptoms. You can become infertile. You can have irregular menstrual periods, very heavy menstrual periods. And 10% of women with this particular hypoandrogenic condition have this medical issue. They can end up with diabetes. And it's interesting because most women with polycystic ovary syndrome are obese. And if you look at Caster Semenya, she is clearly not obese. She is lean. And it's, the problem is that the symptoms of hypoandrogenic conditions, I keep wanting to say hypoallergenic because I'm me and that's the one I have to deal with, but the symptoms mimic steroid use. And that doesn't seem fair to me because people don't choose what bodies they end up going into. eventually they can spend a lot of money on surgery, but that's not what I'm talking about. We all have our things that make us physiologically different, biologically different. And we can't control what combination of things we get at birth. And this gets into very heavy territory, because it gets into the question of what is a man, what is a woman, and you've got these athletes that border on the low end of male hormone levels, certain male hormone levels, but they don't work in the female body the same way they work in the male body. And I can't help but wonder whether Caster Semenya is just being judged because she looks different in a way that a man would not be. I mean, there's nothing, I'm trying to think of what's comparable, and the only thing that really comes close is that thing I said about male athletes who have increased hemoglobin counts. Now, the difference there is that athletes can do altitude training, they can do oxygen therapy, things like that to try to get that up, and that's not considered a performance-enhancing drug. The issue with this is the idea that some people believe that it mimics the effects of a performance-enhancing drug. But it's her natural body. And like I said, some people said, well, that means that some countries are going to recruit these hyperandrogenic athletes. Well, so what if they do? If they're born this way naturally? And I say so because, like I said, this is a rare condition. This is, so you're dealing with the 9 out of 10 women who have this condition who don't have serious health conditions. And then, you're dealing with an even smaller portion that actually have an aptitude for sport. And then even fewer of them will want to put in the time and the training it takes to achieve greatness in elite sports. You're talking about a very small number of people. And the beautiful thing about sports is that every so often you do get someone like a Michael Phelps or a Katie Ledecky or a Simone Biles or an Usain Bolt, and they just seem superhuman. They seem like superheroes, and you want to cheer them on because there's just something about them. They are just so naturally gifted. And we don't think in any other way somebody being naturally gifted is a bad thing. It's this one thing. And it's easy to jump to conclusions and go, yeah, she does have an unfair advantage, quote unquote, unfair advantage, because she has this biological advantage. And I'd like you to point to one athlete in the Olympics that doesn't have some sort of biological advantage. Ask people who compete in the Paralympic Games whether Olympians have a biological advantage over them. They'll tell you yes, and then people say that, that's why the Paralympics exists. And I challenge anybody, any fully able-bodied person to try something like sledge hockey or wheelchair basketball. It is tough. Your arms get such a crazy workout because it's all upper body. I was dead when I tried it, but they're still athletes, and it's actually adapted sports. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that music video where the low sight, I forget they called it pass ball or something like that, but there's actually a bell in the ball. It's like, I'm like, wow, one of Momo's toys is an Olympic event. But it jingles so they can hear it. And I'm like, what an ingenious idea. It's not handicapping the sport to make it easier. It's creating a new sport that people who are essentially legally blind, or what they call low vision athletes, can play. And I think that's very cool. And I don't see that as, I see that as creating sort of general categories for, because you can't specialized for every single disability out there. There are broad categories, and I think that gender in sport is sort of similar when you look at it that way. There's men's sport and there's women's sport, but are we going to start saying, oh, a guy's under 5 foot tall, he's not a man? No, come on. Like, these are all optical things. And like I said, the crazy thing is nobody argues that Caster Semenya is anatomically a woman. Some would call her an intersex woman, but she is not a man. And so it's this question of, then, do you create a separate category for intersex athletes? And I think that's just unnecessary, because there are so few women affected by this condition that it seems silly to create an entirely different category. And so I think that people like Sharp in the background, I don't remember her last name, but I think they should just think of it as, this is what the guys feel like when they're racing against Usain Bolt. He's just fast. Caster Semenya is a great runner, and I wish her all the success. I hope she trains hard. I hope she wins more medals. And I hope that, it's that whole unenviable position of breaking down boundaries in sport, that this sounds really awesome and humanitarian, but no one wants to be that person that has to be a battering ram for an entire section of humanity. And so I wish her well, and I wish her quiet. I hope this stuff eventually gets resolved. But unfortunately, some people are lodging a protest with certain athletic bodies, and there's going to be a follow-up, and there's going to be a commission. And oh my God, So that's my thoughts on the whole thing. Interested to hear what you guys are saying. Please be respectful. Please don't fly off the handle. There's no need. This is just a discussion. None of us here is going to be able to influence the outcome at all. So please don't go from other people's throats. I think conversations like this can be really good learning experiences if everybody keeps it calm. And that's what I'm hoping. Okay, guys, thanks.